Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, October 15th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Another day, another booster shot recommendation. FDA advisors voted today to recommend Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine boosters for all adults. It comes one day after they authorized a third Moderna dose. Emily Schmidt has a closer look.
We do have 19 out of 19 unanimous yes votes.
Johnson & Johnson making its case to the FDA, asking for authorization for a booster for its one-and-done COVID vaccine.
I know that there are lots of recipients who just really want to know, what about me? What should I be doing now?
On Friday, FDA advisors voting unanimously to recommend booster doses of J&J's COVID-19 vaccine, at least 2 months after people get the first dose.
The question is, are people who got the first J&J vaccine better off getting a second dose? And I think the data that are presented says, yes, they are better off and there's no increased risk of vaccine side effects.
Pfizer's booster shot has already been authorized for some vulnerable groups. Meanwhile, new CDC data showing unvaccinated adults face 11 times higher risk of dying from COVID than fully vaccinated adults. With experts saying the data has been consistent, vaccines save lives.
We need to get the unvaccinated vaccinated. That's what's going to make the biggest difference in terms of driving down infection numbers and hospitalizations across the country.
Some positive news on the vaccine front. Using CDC data, the Kaiser Family Foundation reporting an uptick in vaccination rates in the Black community as many overcome vaccine hesitancy.
We've got to get first doses of vaccines and those who are hesitant or refusing, and we have to boost. It's as simple as that.
Emily Schmidt, KPBS News.
Get vaccinated or face discharge. That's what the Navy now says will happen to those who refuse vaccination without a pending or approved exemption. All active duty sailors must be fully vaccinated by November 28th, while those in the selected reserve have until December 28th. Those who refuse the vaccine will receive a general discharge under honorable conditions that could result in the loss of some veterans' benefits. Sailors can apply for an exemption due to medical reasons or a religious accommodation. The Transportation Security Administration says 40% of its workers are unvaccinated, and the deadline is looming. They need to be fully vaccinated by November 22nd, right before the busy Thanksgiving travel period. Even with the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine, employees would have to get the shot by November 8th. The TSA administrator says the agency is creating contingency plans in case of a staff shortage. The White House says fully vaccinated foreign travelers can enter the U.S. starting on November 8th. It's a date many had been waiting for. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel has more from a business in San Ysidro that's doubtful about the news.
The new guidelines announced by the White House apply to both international air travel and land travel. It's news local businesses and families who have been separated by border restrictions have been hoping to hear for almost 2 years now. Rosa Maria Gilgi, a retail manager down the block from the San Ysidro port of entry, isn't too sure the White House will follow through with the November 8th promise.
Pues esperemos que sí dejen cruzar a la gente.
She says, let's hope they do start letting people in because business is dying. We spoke to other businesses in San Ysidro who think the same. They're questioning if it actually will happen. They also have concerns about what vaccines will be accepted by the U.S.
Algunas vacunas no son admitidas.
She says some vaccines given in Mexico might not be accepted in the U.S. According to a White House official, vaccines authorized by the FDA or have an emergency use listed from the World Health Organization will be allowed. It's still unclear how the U.S. will treat people who have mixed shots. The White House says more details are still to come. In the meantime, Gilgee says they're starting to prepare for November 8th and will have the store fully stocked just in case they see an influx of customers. She also says some of their employees will get called back to work since many of them were laid off.
Las trabajadoras están llamando.
She says former workers call daily to ask if business is picking up so they can come back to work. The San Ysidro Chamber of Commerce estimates 250 businesses have shut down since the border closed to non-essential travel last year. They're hoping to recuperate money lost this coming holiday season. Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
The Biden administration says it plans to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy. The Trump-era directive calls for asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for hearings in U.S. immigration court. The move hinges on approval from the Mexican government, which has raised concerns that U.S. officials say they are working to address. Among those, Mexico wants cases to generally conclude within 6 months and ensure that asylum seekers have timely and accurate information about hearing dates and times. An update now on the debate over the controversial and often misrepresented issue of critical race theory in the San Diquito Union High School District. A proposal to ban it was pulled from last night's school board meeting, tabling the issue for now. Board trustees decided a resolution to amend the district's current controversial issues policy was not appropriate in its current form. The district does not currently use critical race theory, and there are no plans to teach it in the future.
I do believe that talking about race and racism is a very important topic inside a classroom. It's how we identify with ourselves, and we need to be we need to always make sure that we're doing it in a respectful, compassionate way. But I don't see the language as presented as representing what I think we hope to do.
Also last night, the board approved and hired its new superintendent, Dr. Cheryl James Ward, who will begin on November 1st. UC San Diego has a record high 42,000 students on campus this quarter, a significant increase over the last decade. KPBS reporter Melissa May spoke with some UCSD students about their current experiences on campus.
UC San Diego is the second largest UC campus and has increased its student body by over 2,300 students from last fall.
More people that come here, it just becomes more crowded. It just becomes a little bit more difficult to maneuver.
Alexis Damian is a fifth-year student at UCSD's Marshall College and commutes to campus from the South Bay.
I drive, but sometimes I just get dropped off just because it's easier. And like I said, parking here sucks. It's difficult to find parking, so I usually just get dropped off.
UCSD does provide students with a free bus pass, but for those who drive, parking is difficult. Another challenge on campus? Grabbing a bite to eat.
20, 25, 26.
Students are encouraged to use the Triton to Go mobile ordering app to order food from the dining halls. But freshman Anna Norris says that is difficult sometimes.
So all the dining halls close at 8. So if you didn't order food by 6, you were not getting dinner from the dining halls because of how long the wait times were.
The school does offer free Grubhub membership with no delivery fee, and there are some markets on campus. The Price Center is open later than the other dining halls, but lines are sometimes long, and finding a place to sit can be tough. And then there's trying to enroll in classes.
As a humanities major, other people have definitely had a harder time than me, but I will say it still has been difficult, especially fulfilling GE requirements. Everyone else here is also trying to fulfill those same requirements.
Rain Ying Fong has school pride, but is not considering UCSD for her master's, based on her experience as an undergrad.
Resources I can get is limited, and I have to spend too much time on waiting everything, waiting for a spot, waiting for getting enrolled in a class.
Fong thinks there is an imbalance between the number of students and the number of professors.
For office hour, students have to wait in line to wait for their turns, and each slot every student can get, it's about 15 minutes if in a big class.
More than 12,200 undergrad students live on campus. As of October 13th, only 72 upper division undergrads are on the wait list for housing. Melissa May, KPBS News.
While the Biden administration announced new moves to ease the West Coast shipping backlog, some small businesses say it's too late. Distributors say they are still anticipating a shortage and a price increase. Camila Bernal has more.
This wholesale retail store distributes toys all over the country.
I'm scared.
But the merchandise comes from China. And with delays at the Long Beach and Los Angeles ports, they're either stuck on shipping containers along the coast or coming at dramatically increased prices.
Like every day I'm crossing my fingers that hoping that our containers gets here.
Ports in Southern California now operating around the clock.
The most popular product right now are all the pop fidget toys.
But for distributor Claire Liu,
this Christmas the damage is done. We just have to hope and pray and that products are getting through.
These small businesses prepare for the holidays months in advance, but goods are already limited and prices are already high.
Moving goods from the factory to the customer. Some numbers that I've seen, the early indications suggest it has gone up on average about 56%.
At La Fiesta Party Supply in downtown Los Angeles, the owners worry about their holiday supply.
A year ago, we were bringing products for Christmas, but because the delays in logistics, we got the product for Christmas, we got it on January.
They expect a similar situation this year. Plus, the added cost.
I had to pay rent, I had to pay employees, and if I don't increase the price, then it wouldn't be a business.
Both of these small businesses say in the end, they suffer, as do retail stores Americans rely on every day. And their customers pay the price.
Look at it in a different perspective. It's everyone's concern. It's everyone's problem.
In Los Angeles, I'm Camila Bernal.
Former President Bill Clinton will remain at UC Irvine Medical Center overnight, where he is recovering from a urological infection. Clinton's infection spread to his bloodstream. A spokesman says the former president is staying at the hospital to receive more IV antibiotics, but that all health indicators are trending in the right direction. He adds that Clinton continues to be in excellent spirits. County and city officials are working to stop an outbreak of shigellosis among people experiencing homelessness. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says 7 cases have been reported so far.
When there is an outbreak in the community, we want people not to write off symptoms that they have.
A shigellosis outbreak among homeless residents has sent at least 7 people to the hospital. Dr. Victor Nize is a professor of pediatrics and pharmacy at UC San Diego. He says the bacterial infection is a foodborne illness similar to E. coli and salmonella and is very contagious.
If you're in close contact with an infected individual, even if you're being relatively careful, it's possible to get an infection.
County and city officials are setting up additional hand washing stations and portable restrooms in areas where unsheltered residents are staying. They're also deploying county nurses to local shelters and increasing sanitation measures there. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria and Supervisor Nathan Fletcher said in a statement that protecting the health and safety of our residents, especially those who are unsheltered and particularly vulnerable, is their priority, and they don't want this outbreak to turn into a public health crisis. Nize says for most people, shigellosis symptoms are mild.
Some diarrhea, maybe low-grade fever, abdominal cramping, and actually it self-resolves on its own.
People with underlying medical conditions are more susceptible to bad outcomes and being hospitalized, but in the United States,
fatalities are extremely rare.
Nize says health officials are likely working to sanitize areas where known cases have been reported and testing those who could have been exposed. No deaths have been reported, and those hospitalized are expected to make a full recovery. County health officials say they are also distributing more hygiene kits and educational information about shigellosis to unsheltered residents. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The city of San Diego's new ambulance provider says it's well on its way to hiring the necessary staff to take over next month. That's despite a nationwide shortage of EMTs and paramedics. Falck says they've hired 221 EMTs, which exceeds their goal. They've also brought on 143 paramedics, which is just 6 shy of their target goal. Falck has faced some criticism over response times in other counties. But the company says when they take over in San Diego, there will be more ambulances out in the city.
By having more ambulances on the road, and that's why the staffing was so critical. So we'll have the vehicles, we'll have the ambulances. Having more ambulances on the road means that they're typically going to be closer.
Falck takes over in San Diego on November 27th. It will provide 33 new ambulances and 33 existing ones. Early next year, it plans on switching out the old ones for 33 more new ambulances. California will now study how to set up its own zero-fee public bank accounts, the latest step in the state's exploration of public banking. KPBS race and equity reporter says some local leaders now want to explore how a public bank might work in San Diego.
California is taking the first steps to create a statewide public banking option that could help its estimated 1 million households that don't have bank accounts. Most of these households are Black or Latino.
I grew up in a household when they kept money at home because financial institutions were foreign. And so you take a look at what I now know and my experience, and it makes sense that we should tackle one of the biggest barriers in this fight against income inequality, which is...
That's Los Angeles Assembly member Miguel Santiago. He authored the new law, AB 1177, along with San Diego Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez. It will set up a commission to study how to create a public banking option. He hopes that will lead to the creation to what he's calling Cal accounts.
This will allow consumers in the state of California to get a zero fee, zero cost, zero penalty savings account, checking account, banking account that's currently not available, and then one that they can trust that is not after creating the highest profit.
So what does public banking really mean? It includes public-facing banks that individuals can use for normal banking business. That's what the new law is exploring. It could also be government-owned banks that cities or state agencies could use to deposit their funds and then finance public projects like bike lanes, housing, or other public goods. Here in San Diego, County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer says public banking options could address income inequality.
We know that it's easier to get access to capital if you already have capital. So we're really stuck in a pretty vicious cycle of inequality. And I think we should need to be looking every tool in the toolbox to break that cycle.
Nationwide, there are only 2 public banks, one in North Dakota and the other in the territory of American Samoa. In 2019, a California law paved the way for up to 10 local governments to charter public banks. This month, the Los Angeles City Council passed a motion to start drafting a business plan for a public bank. And San Francisco is also not far behind. San Diego could be one of the state's 10 pilot programs. But Jeff Olson, a local public bank advocate, is worried San Diego will miss out on the opportunity.
San Diego has famously procrastinated so long on some things that we've lost out big time. I don't have to remind anybody that we waited so long to build a stadium that we no longer have a football team.
In the last round of budget proposals, 6 San Diego council members said they were interested in exploring a public bank option. But it's not in the city or county budget yet. Joel Day is running for city council in District 6. He included public banking as part of his housing platform.
We need an all hands on deck to deal with infrastructure crisis and housing. We can do that by putting public money into a public bank to then work with those public assets to address the big crises of our time, like building affordable housing. A public bank allows us to do that much more efficiently than asking Wall Street to hold our money.
But not everyone in San Diego likes the idea. In a 2020 San Diego Union Tribune article, economists from Sandag and several professors from major local universities said they were against the idea. Private sector leaders like Michael Lee, a principal at Cardiff Consulting Services, agrees with their concerns.
I think a reason that a lot of advocates like the idea of a bank like this is they're going to lend to activities and individuals and entities that the private sector isn't lending to now. Well, there's a reason why the private sector doesn't lend there, and it's oftentimes that there's more risk associated with that.
While local leaders debate setting up a public bank, California is pressing ahead. The statewide study has to be done by 2024. Cristina Kim, KPBS News.
As we head through the next few days, our winds dying down. That's the good news. We had a bit of that Santa Ana event going on throughout the day. That should get quieter as we head in through tomorrow morning, and really a pretty quiet weekend. However, we will see the flow kick around and become onshore as we head through the end of the weekend and into next week. Signs of more changes upon us. For now, though, temperatures holding on to the 50s as we fall through the night. 58 for the low in San Diego. Oceanside, though, coming in the mid-40s. Maybe a few clouds out there, but overall, because we have that offshore flow, it's relatively clear in most locations, and high pressure is going to stick with us as we venture through tomorrow. That's going to be the story throughout the Southwest, again keeping that subtle offshore flow, not as gusty though as this storm system, as this high pressure system starts to slide its way a little farther towards the east, leaving us a little bit quieter as far as weather's concerned. Now, there will be maybe just a few coastal clouds out there tomorrow, but for the high, we're back into the mid-80s in San Diego. Meanwhile, Mount Laguna coming in at 62, Borrego Springs, mid to upper 80s for you, and it's basically a warm, pretty dry time. Sunday's forecast, though. Here comes that onshore flow switching in, and that means cooler times for most of the area as we get that onshore flow. There will actually be rain in Northern California. We miss out on that, but at least with the onshore flow, we'll start to ramp up a little bit more humidity. It also could mean a few extra clouds, especially marine layer clouds as we head into next week, which is why we do have those clouds added in for Monday, Tuesday, even into Wednesday. Temperatures a bit cooler there for our coastal communities, inland communities. It's the 90s as we head through tomorrow, but back into the 70s and even upper 60s by the time we get to Monday. So that's that cool down that we have with the onshore flow bringing us some of those changes. We'll actually be in the mid to lower 50s for our mountain locations as we head through Monday and Tuesday. The core of that cool air kind of sliding its way on east. And for desert communities, we'll fall back to the lower 80s for Monday and Tuesday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Many products cost a bit more due to inflation, and that's affecting how much those on Social Security will get paid. SDSU's Miro Kopik breaks it down in the Friday Business Report.
We've seen over the course of the year that inflation is really running well ahead of the Fed target of 2% as of last month, even though inflation has been moderating somewhat. So for seniors, this relief can't come fast enough. They've been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. Many have struggled to make their housing payments. Some have actually, reduced the amount of meals they take because they have to make decisions. I have to buy medication or I have to eat. So this is a welcome relief. Social Security is an important source of income for seniors. In fact, 1 in 4 seniors, it represents over 90% of the income they receive every month. And this cost of living increase is going to represent basically about a $90, $95 increase in the monthly stipend that Social Security sends, which all things considered, about $90, that's an extra $1,000 a year, which may or may not be enough to help those seniors significantly that rely on Social Security as their single or primary source of income.
Tonight on the NewsHour, an FDA advisory panel authorizes a booster shot for Johnson & Johnson vaccine recipients. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A teacher from the East County is one of 5 2022 California Teachers of the Year. Tiffany Jokerst is a math and engineering teacher at West Hills High School in Santee. She teaches grades 9 through 12. And she is the first San Diego County teacher to be named a California Teacher of the Year since 2017. Thinking of catching a movie this weekend? KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando wants to recommend that you steer clear of a pair of new releases.
Halloween is my favorite time of the year, but the latest film in the Halloween franchise nearly ruined the season for me.
Evil dies tonight.
No, it doesn't. The franchise needs Michael Myers alive. The original Halloween was lean and mean and achieved more chills with a fraction of the kills than what the latest film serves up. What John Carpenter's original film had that none of the subsequent films have managed to replicate is an elegant simplicity. Michael was just evil. You didn't need a lengthy explanation about it. The best thing about the previous reboot was seeing Jamie Lee Curtis come back as a crazy badass. But now she's sidelined for most of the movie in the hospital, while the rest of the survivors try to instigate a mob to kill Michael. But seriously, who organizes a mob to go after Michael Myers with a baseball bat? I mean, this is the town that's witnessed Michael's carnage firsthand, so are they really that stupid? The worst offense any horror film can commit for me is to be boring, and I just got so bored watching these characters behave so stupidly. The best thing about Halloween Kills is Jamie Lee Curtis at the film's premiere, dressed like her mom's iconic character from Psycho. So, should you see Halloween Kills? Let Lori answer that. Oh, no! Now, Ridley Scott's The Last Duel is not entirely bad. It's just 2/3 of a bad movie. The film's set up as a kind of Rashomon-like narrative where you see a story from 3 different points of view. But that structure is only interesting if we have to struggle to decide whose story is the truth. In The Last Duel, we're told which one is true. And in an era of awareness about sexual assault, we know from the start that we're meant to believe the woman's story. When we get to her story, that's when the film comes alive, by showing us the past from a fresh and female perspective. The other 2/3 of the film, you can just skip, because it feels like familiar tropes about medieval life that we've seen far too often before. Well, so maybe don't skip this one entirely, just time it to come in for the 3rd chapter. I don't want to leave you without any options for an October weekend, so I recommend checking out The Medium on Shudder. It's a Thai tale of possession that reinvigorates a familiar exorcism formula by putting it in a fresh cultural context. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great weekend.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.